Welcome to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch podcast. Join us on our journey as we recap, examine, and critique the series episode by episode from the beginning.
We'll be keeping our podcast spoiler free, so we welcome fans, new and old, to join us in watching and reflecting on one of our favorite shows. Currently, we're on season 1,
I'm your host, Jess Sabenko.
and I'm your host, Mia Sabenko.
Now let's get into this week's episode. All right. Hi, everybody. So this week we're doing something a little different. We'll do this at the end of each season. So it's our end of season wrap up. Basically, we'll discuss some of our ideas about the season. For the last few minutes, we'll have a spoiler section where we'll talk about how things from season 1 are going to lead to future plot lines. We'll give you a warning before that starts. So if you're a first-time viewer, feel free to end the episode there and take a look back at that later on after you've seen the full series if you want to.
All right, so let's get right into it. What's the first thing you want to talk about? I mean, I feel like we had such a crazy season 1. So much
I
to get
know.
into.
I know. So I'm thinking maybe the first thing we can cover, I know I sent you like a whole list of things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm thinking maybe we can start with some of our little lists that we worked out, and then we could talk about some characters and plot lines afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So I ranked my top 10 episodes, like as far as what I think are the best stories of the season.
I kind of did it still in the sense of like my favorites.
Okay, yeah. So I have a list of my 5 favorites, and then I have a list of like what I think the 10 best episodes are.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I sort of did that too because when I was making my list, I was trying to figure that out. Like, am I just putting this here because I like it the most, or like because it was actually like a really well developed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So mine's kind of maybe a little out of place, but it's all right.
And I will say there's a lot of overlap between the two lists, but
Yeah, mine's
all
pretty
right,
much.
so let me get into it. So when I'm ranking episodes in order of which ones I think are the best episodes of the season, this is my top 10. So at number 10, I have From Fear to Eternity. At number 9, I have The Truth is Out There and It Hurts. At number 8, I have The Witch is Back. At number 7, I have Secrets and Guys, which I didn't think I would put, but I did. Number 6, I have Out of Sight. Number 5, I have The Power of Two. Number 4, I have Is There a Woogie in the House? Number 3, I have that 70s episode. Number 2, I have Deja Vu All Over Again. And number 1, I have Love Hurts.
Okay, so I think some of ours are a little similar. So I haven't. Do you want me to like read my list too, and then we'll talk about both of them?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so mine, like I said, was a little more in the order of like less about the storylines, more about whether I liked them the best or not. So at number 10, I have The Power of Two. At number 9, I have Feats of Clay. At 8, I have The Wendigo. And then 7, I put Dead Man Dating. 6, I put The Witch's Back. 5 is Something Wicca This Way Comes. 4 is From Fear to Eternity. 3 is There a Woogie in the House? 2 is Love Hurts. And 1 is that 70s episode.
Okay. So we have some overlap, some
Yeah,
not
some pretty
overlapping.
similar.
Now,
Yeah, some
I can
exactly.
definitely tell you did it based on favorites by the fact that the Wendigo is on there.
I know. Yeah, no. The Wendigo I just is one of my favorites.
I
Love it.
have Dead Man Dating in my favorite list. I didn't put it in my top episode list though.
Yeah, for me it felt like the first thing I thought of was, I mean, not only is it a really enjoyable episode, but I like that we get different ideas like from another culture in that episode, and the fact that I feel like he was the first that was the first love interest we saw from Piper besides like after Jeremy kind of thing. I don't know. To me, it was like really intriguing, and I really not to mention Phoebe gets a job for the first time in that episode. Like all around, just a good little like things happening in season one. It felt like for me.
Yeah. And also in that episode, I mean, we get, the beginnings of the connections between Prue and Phoebe starting to grow, where Prue is starting to like trust Phoebe and her powers. So there's definitely a lot of plot stuff that happens in that episode. I get having that on your list. It makes sense to me. But yeah, I mean, a lot of ours, I mean, we have them in a bit of a different order, but we have a lot of the same ones. I think there's no denying that Love Hurts has to be somewhere on a top list. Like, if you don't have that in the top, whether it's your favorites or like whether you think it's the best episodes of the season, like it belongs up there. It is an amazing epised, and 100%. I loved it.
I mean, you had it as your number one. I had it as my number two. So we totally had the same vibe. And I had to put the very first episode in there, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Although it's not like the craziest episode demon wise and things like that, it's the beginning of their story. And the way they go about it and the confusion and Phoebe first coming back, like this is where we first get to see how everyone feels, what everyone's like to each other, what happens, how they develop their powers. Like to me, it's just always been one of my favorites and a very important episode, obviously.
No, definitely. And I think if like I had ranked every episode beginning to end, like Something Wicked This Way Comes would have been number 11 on my list.
Yeah.
Like there's no way it's not in the first half of the best episodes of the season.
Oh, for sure. So why don't you talk about your number 10?
Oh, so yeah, my number 10 was From Fear to Eternity, and
I have that way higher up. To me, that was
that's because I ranked it not among favorites. I ranked it as like, what's the best episode?
Okay, fair enough.
Because let me read for you my favorites list. That way you kind of get an idea of that order too. So for my favorites, I put The Power of Two as number 1. From Fear to Eternity is number 2. Love Hurts is number 3. That 70s episode is number 4. And Dead Man Dating is number 5.
Okay, yeah. So mine's a little bit different. I mean, mine's literally just the same as the first half of my list.
Yeah.
But I still felt that those were like really important episodes in general. So I have that 70s episode as number 1. Love Hurts is number 2. Is There a Woogie in the House is number 3. From Fear to Eternity is number 4. And Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah, so we have a lot of overlap in that. And even in our, top episodes, we have a lot of overlap. But
yeah,
when it comes to like which episodes I think are the strongest, most of these I chose. I might not have chosen these if you'd asked me at the beginning what I thought the best episodes of season 1 were going to be. I feel like our discussions, especially when it comes to Secrets and Guys, because never before this watch and our discussion would I have ranked that in the top 10 episodes of season 1. I can say that for a fact. Which one is
Secrets and Guys again? Why am I like
That's
blinking?
The one where with the little boy Max and Leo comes back.
Oh, yeah, I totally understand why that one was could have been on your strongest episode list.
And like Out of Sight too. I mean, so much happens in that episode, and I feel like in previous watches, like I liked that episode and I understood that it was important because of the Andy stuff, but after our conversation, I see just how big that episode was for the season, and that's why I ranked it kind of as my number 6.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. So how about your number 1, Love Hurts?
Yeah, I mean, part of it would be because I think it's such a beautiful episode because of the Piper and Leo storyline, but I truly believe that that is the strongest episode of the season. I think that the storylines are there, the character development for the sisters is there. The switching powers, I think, really provides an element that gets to show us the connections growing so much stronger that like we couldn't have seen without that plot line. So I really just everything about that episode. I mean, the metaphor for the abusive relationship, like I feel like every element of that episode is carried out so strongly, and that's why I had to rank it as my number 1.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And all of those factors were a big part of why I put it as my number two, especially like the message it was trying to send and the connections that we had gone over. I probably would have put it on this list somewhere. Like before having discussed the episodes, it definitely still would have been on the list, but I don't think that I would have had it so high up because I've never really thought about it that deeply. Before it was always like, oh, just Leo comes back, like yay. But then after talking about it, I realized all these important factors and how strong it really was and how much I really do enjoy this episode and like appreciate everything that the writers did here. So that's why I had to rank it up top or, number two. For me, I put my number one as that 70s episode because as far as the characters and storyline and the show itself, like this is the episode where we get all of the background, like we learn about their family. I mean, aside from like maybe the witch is back, but I feel like we learn so much about their history. We get to see them as little kids. We are left with so many questions. They had powers when they were kids. We figure out how that went away and what happened, situations with their mom. We got to see a demon that their family had gone up against in the past. Like Phoebe got to meet her mom for the first time. Like it was just so much in that episode that I felt like it just had to be put up top.
Yeah, I mean, it's my number 3 episode, so I'm not disagreeing with you at all that it's important and it's an amazing episode. Because the only episode I have between Love Hurts and that 70s episode is Deja Vu all over again. I just feel that the finale is so strong. I mean, we literally just recorded our conversation about it and we barely had anything bad to say because that's how
Yeah.
strong the story is in that episode. And that's kind of why I ranked it in that order for my top 3.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. If I had been thinking about the list the way that you intended it, then I think Deja Vu all over again would have been up there 100%. My order definitely would have been a little bit different, but I still feel like a lot of these episodes, like I would have put them still on my list.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the episodes we named were the same episodes. They just weren't in
Yeah,
the same order.
exactly, 100%. And then from Fear to Eternity, I know we both have that on ours. I would say probably if I were doing it the way you did it, I would have put Fear to Eternity closer to the end, like you did, but still in the top 10. Something about that episode just,
It also, like, that episode kind of opens our hot streak of good episodes leading up to the end of the season because we have a couple of, like, not bad episodes, but like less strong episodes before that.
mhm,
And I feel like once we hit From Here to Eternity, the rest of the season is like banger after banger after banger.
exactly. It was the first introduction we had with their mom. We learn about their fears, which is a big part of what they're doing. Obviously, these demons are going to use it against them. We always talk about how strong and how fearless they are, and the way that they overcome it against Barbas is like just amazing. Like I felt like it was a really strong episode altogether, so I definitely would have put that on the list
Yeah,
either way.
absolutely.
And of course the witch is back, like that one I
Mhm.
felt was very, there's no way that one couldn't be on here. I mean, Melinda Warren, the whole situation. Plus, we had all of our Rex and Hannah dramas still going on, which I was so glad once that was finally over because I couldn't
Yeah.
stand them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, they're one of my least favorite kind of like multi-episode villain arcs. But it's season 1. I'll give it a pass for that reason. And
Yeah,
they do get rid of them in the first half. So it's not like we had to deal with them all season.
right.
And I'm glad they're kind of only there for 11 episodes and then we get back into something else.
Exactly. Me too. Completely agree. Okay, what about your top 5 favorites? Those were different.
Yeah, so I mean, that list, was basically it was a lot of the same episodes. I think my only different one was that I had Dead Man Dating in there, and that was kind of for the reasons you said. Like every episode I list here we've talked about, other than the power of two, but we both know why we love that episode. The answer is Jackson Ward.
Exactly. No doubt. So, how about favorite villains?
All right. So this list, okay.
I feel like I'm having, well, there's like one on the list that like I guess I shouldn't really discuss my reasoning because it would be more of like a spoiler, which I guess I could talk about in the spoiler section, but I wouldn't want to say anything now.
Is that person your number one?
Of course it is. Are you
It's
kidding?
mine
Is it
too.
your number one?
Okay, so we both have as a number one the Demon of Fear.
Yes.
We won't get too much into it. I mean, even from the episode we saw him in, he was pretty great. But the Demon of Fear does one day pop up again. We'll just say that and
Yeah,
leave it at that until we get to the spoiler section.
exactly. But I did put him as my favorite villain. Even just aside from that, even in just the episode that he's in already, I felt like he did such an amazing job at playing this character. Like he couldn't like he couldn't look more the part, he couldn't have acted more the part, sounded like it, his voice, his energy, everything about the way he's like very like I don't know, to me he looked kind of like flowy. Like he was just so into everything he did. Everything about his demeanor I just absolutely adored. I had to put him as my number 1.
Yeah, there's just something about that man and the way he like presents himself on screen that just makes a perfect villain to me. Like when I think of a villain, I think of the Demon of Fear.
100%. Me too. Probably favorite villain of all time.
Yes, honestly. All right. Who did you have as your number two?
Okay, so hear me out. I put Javna. Solely because of his phrase. It's I have to say it sticks out to me more than any other villain. He's always has, but it's Javna. I know it's not a real genuine reason, but honestly most of the villains in season 1 I didn't like. Like I was really looking over all of them trying to even come up with a list of 5 and had a really hard time because most of them I absolutely hated.
That's fair. That's fair. It was hard for me to come up with a list, and I felt really horrible when I realized my all 5 of my villains were men. I'm like, I want a female villain, but like I didn't really like any of the female villains this
Really?
season.
I actually had a female villain in mind.
Do you? I'm excited to find out who it is. But my number 2 was my boyfriend Jackson Ward.
I figured it would be. I totally did. I will say I do have Jackson Ward on the list, but he's a little further down. So, understandable. Again, someone who just fits the part really well. Pretty hot, can't
Exactly.
even
Like
lie.
everything about the way he carries himself just screams villain to me. And I loved that episode. You guys know I talked so much about my crush on Jackson Ward. I won't get back into it and bore you all, but he's my number 2.
I mean, I feel like if I had to make a comparison, he's like to me the human version of Barbas kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's like just as like evil but carries himself the same way and like I everything about him absolutely love.
I would have loved to see those two teamed up as a pair of villains. Like what
That
that
would
could
have
have
been
done.
awesome. Oh my god, would have knocked us to the ground. Would have been an insane
Literally.
episode.
I know.
So as number 3, this is actually the female one I had, and I guess she wasn't so much a villain, but I put the Guardian of the Urn.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Why?
So first of all, she's so hot. Second of all, I liked that they had someone who was supposed to be like the antagonist in the episode, but isn't built around like evil, you know? Like she's not evil or good. She's just there for this sole purpose of protecting this urn and willing to or like has to do whatever it takes. I love how calm she is and like just the way she presents herself as not as this perfect in-between character that just has like just does her job, you know, does what she needs to do. And like I said, super hot. So I had to
Yeah.
put her on there as one of my favorite villains because if I really think about it, I mean, I really enjoy that episode and I really enjoy her little part that she plays in it.
Yeah, to be honest, she didn't even cross my mind as like a villain, but I love that you put her. I think she's an amazing character as well. I love the morally gray aspect to the character that exists, because it's all about, like you said, kind of doing that job as opposed to like good and evil. It's just stealing is wrong and I'm gonna punish whoever steals.
Exactly. And in the end, there was no defeating her, which was cool. The idea of like everyone else, they kind of, killed this demon, but her, she just did her job. They kind of reversed it and she just went right back to her post. Like, I don't know, it was just really, really cool to me. And I feel like she's forgotten about. So when I was going over, I really thought about it and I was like, yeah, I am going to put her on my list.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk about her again in this episode.
Yeah. So who'd you have as your number 3?
I actually had Tempest.
Tempest, I hadn't even thought about him. I made the list before we recorded the last episode. So in my mind, even though I knew Tempest was in season 1, I guess I didn't really think about it. Like when I was looking over, I was like, oh, Rodriguez is the bad guy in that episode. But if I had remembered about Tempest, I think he would be on my list too.
Yeah, there's something about him. I mean, I have a little crush on Tempest too, but like I just the way he's like so powerful and knows it, and like his little defeat at the end is funny to me, but like the way he's just so calm and like judging him, like he just reminds me of like your grumpy old grandpa who like knows you're doing something wrong. That's kind of what I like about him.
Yeah, I totally agree. Honestly, if I had thought about him, he would totally have been on there. Everything for the same exact reasons you just said. For some reason, like, I don't know why, but he totally does remind me, like, or give me vibes of like our own grandfather,
Yeah.
like Pop Pop with his like just the grumpiness and just the like, I don't really care what you guys have to say. It's just like there's something so like adorable in that way to me and like admirable, even though it's weird because I feel like, and I don't know if this is going to sound wrong, but I feel like on anyone else or like maybe a younger person, I wouldn't see that as like a good thing. But for some reason, I really respect it coming from him, and like Tempest.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So for my number 4, of course, I had Jackson Ward for, the same reasons we've already discussed. I'm not going to repeat, we don't have to repeat ourselves, but I did put him as my number 4 on the list.
Nice. I have the Shadow as number 4.
Okay, I was going to put the Shadow on my list, but I didn't know if like that would have made sense. Okay, why did you put the Shadow?
So I like the way that it's connected to the house. I liked the way it overtook Phoebe in that episode. I found its powers and kind of its like spreading of chaos to be really interesting. As we know, it's connected to the spiritual nexus, and I'm interested to see how the shadow may or may not reappear in the future and kind of what that darkness entails, because I'm interested in darkness spreading, and I think that's what kind of really draws me to the idea of this shadow demon.
Okay, that's pretty much exactly why I was going to put him on my list. That makes so much sense because I was trying to think of like, okay, well, what is it that I'm going to say though? Like, what is it that draws me to him? Because there's something about it that like I really do love that demon, like, or the shadow, whatever it is, but I didn't really know. I was like, maybe I'm just doing it because, I love that episode. So
Yeah.
I think looking back, I would have put that as my number 5 or maybe even higher on the list, but he's not on there. I I don't know. But I really do love that you had him on there for all the same reasons.
Yeah. So who do you have as your number 5?
So for number 5, I was really going to leave that blank because I just couldn't think of anyone. I mean, aside from the shadow, that was pretty much my plan was just to leave that blank because I couldn't think of anyone. So I thought really hard and I was like, if I had to, and this isn't a character I like, if I had to rate someone like next in line, I think I would put Matthew from the Melinda Warren episode.
I didn't put Matthew and I should have, because when I got to number 5, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, there are no other like villains I really, really love. Who can I pick? It like was such a hard decision. I was like going back and forth, and I ended up choosing Gabriel.
Oh, you know what? He crossed my mind, but I was like, I think between Gabriel and Matthew, neither of which are like at all my top choices, but it was between those two for my number 5. And so I ended up going with Matthew.
Honestly, I would go with either of them for my number 5 because I feel like they're both very like run of the mill type of villains. The reason I ended up going with Gabriel because I like that he had the true evil of him. Like I really think back to that moment where he killed Helena to kind of like prove to Prue that he didn't give a fuck. And like so that's kind of why I chose him because I was like, I love that there's that pure evil there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also liked how calculated he was throughout the episode as well.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I could see how, you know, Gabriel would be up there 100%. For me, I don't really know why I ended up going with Matthew, but I think it was something about his attitude and his confidence that
And how sexy it was when he kissed Melinda, even though it was low key
oh,
rapey.
oh hell yeah. Like first of all, he was super hot, but second of all, for some reason his confidence like it didn't bother me the way that the demons usually do. Like their cockiness, I'm usually like, all right, like whatever. But for some reason with Matthew, it was almost charming and I didn't hate it, you know?
Yeah.
And he felt a little more human in a way. And I liked that, you know, he had this connection to the family and the sisters and Melinda Warren, and that he was this demon from way back when, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know, everything about it was just pretty perfect to me. So I ended up choosing him.
So I guess from here, let's go to our main characters and kind of what we think on them and their season 1 storylines. I guess let's start with Prue, the oldest sister.
All right. So for Prue, I was thinking about all the changes in her from day one. And I kind of noticed that in the beginning, like it almost seemed like fighting these demons and accepting her destiny and everything almost loosened her up a little bit. In the beginning, she felt very like she was still this admirable, independent, strong woman, and she still is, but it felt like she was very by the book, like the boss, like in charge of things, and slowly started to loosen up and trust her sister's sides more, built that relationship with Phoebe, which also helped her like calm down. She kind of opened up more to Andy, and we see more of a like a goofier kind of side of her that we didn't really see towards the beginning. And I just love the way that from beginning to end, like you do see that change in her. You see her power growth, which felt right, like, you know, right in the middle or a little later in season 1 where they have her start using her hands. It just felt perfectly timed, you know?
I mentioned in our first recording that in previous watches, Prue has never been a favorite character of mine, but she's grown on me a lot more in this watch. And part of it has been our conversations. And I think the other part of it is just that I'm older now. And so I understand her character more than I did like as a little kid watching the show. But I found her journey in season 1 really relatable, really interesting. All the responsibilities she's taken on in her life and kind of how that's impacted her and her personality. I think we get some really interesting insights into the other parts of her that exist, in which Prue is it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We also see that, like you mentioned, in her relationship with Andy throughout the season and how she's able to open up with him so much more than she is anyone else. I loved seeing kind of her forgiveness and connection to Phoebe grow throughout the season. I've always loved her connection with Piper and how close the two of them are, how dedicated she is to her job and the way she's working so hard to find this balance between like doing the greater good and kind of keeping her family afloat with this job that is the highest paying job in her family. And I'm really interested to see where she goes. I know in the finale, you know, we kind of have that moment at the end where she seems very calm and like she's collected. And I hope that that's true growth in her as opposed to her kind of like going back to her old ways of hiding her feelings and keeping things inside. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see how we open up with her on season 2 and how she continues to grow as a person there.
Me too. I can't wait to see how her story continues. I wonder if it gets to, or at least I hope it gets to a point where because I mean, like I said, she's loosened up, she's learning to trust her sisters more and learn that they can handle things without her now. Like she doesn't have to be responsible for everyone all the time. But then again, she's still oldest sister, still helping them save their own lives every day. And on top of that, in the real world, or, in the human world, having this job that pretty much runs the household. So she still does have a lot of responsibility on her back. And especially now that Piper isn't going to be working anymore, or, not there at least, I wonder how in the future if those responsibilities for her ever calm down, if she ever gets a chance to free herself up and maybe do something that she really wants to do and make herself happy, or if she's going to find a new love interest after Andy, if Andy's going to come back, how she's going to react with Andy's death, if she's going to heal. I have a lot of questions for Prue and what's going to continue for her in the future seasons.
Yeah, I'm wondering the same exact things, especially when it comes to like, will she love again? Is Andy coming back as a white lighter and will they still be together? Will she, not be able to move on? I'm interested in those things. I'm also interested in, like you were saying, her personal growth, what's going to happen with her and her sisters, how her powers might continue to grow and how she might develop as this witch. I think we've seen her a lot throughout this season as kind of like the strongest one and like the leader. So I want to know if that's going to continue or if another sister might step into that role and kind of what's going to go on with that as well.
Exactly. Anything else you have to say for Prue?
Um, no, I think we can move on to Piper if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of felt that of all the characters, Piper, I wouldn't say had the least development because she totally did have a major development, but in a different way. I felt that her personality stayed more intact than any of the other sisters throughout the season. Like her goals and everything were the same from the start. Her interests, the way she feels about love, her kind of being the middle sister still to the end, like this in between, this buffer for Prue and Phoebe. She's still the one that's closest to each one of them and kind of the least opinionated. I still feel that she's a very strong character, but I feel like throughout the season she did keep her role pretty much there. But I must say, as far as her mentality changing, like she has become so much more confident, so much more of an independent woman, and I like finally starting to stick up for herself a little more, use her own voice, live her own life. I mean, at the end, we end with her deciding to leave and pursue her own dream. And we have her love interest that we know is obviously important, like going to be a main character. I can't wait to see how that plays out, how her chasing this restaurant dream plays out. And I'm just so proud of like the person that she's grown into and the confidence she's gained throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in this watch, I mean, we've said it multiple times, but I found myself relating so much to Piper. I've mentioned it several times, but Piper's the same age as me. So that's part of it. I think it's also the fact that the way she is about romance is similar to how I am. The way she kind of has a harder time standing up for herself. Like I'm the same way. Like when it comes to my family, like it's very easy for me to like insert myself into things and like say my opinion and that stuff. But when it comes to like outside relationships and especially in like work or friendships, like it's a lot harder for me to be confrontational. So I get where she comes from in a lot of those scenes and kind of seeing her learn to stand up for herself and take charge of her life and, make that decision to quit her job and pursue her true dream there is really inspirational to me. And I loved seeing that growth and development in her because we saw her at the beginning of season one, she wanted that chef job. And then she falls into that managerial job and doesn't really know how to say no to it or to say no to her boss until she finally realizes, well, if I keep doing this, I'm never going to get what I want. And I liked that realization and that she did something about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even though it did take longer for her, it felt really right, with the growth of her character, that slow progression of like, oh, each time she stands up for herself a little more, she uses her voice a little bit more. Like it felt like a good progression from the beginning to the end of her kind of becoming this more confident woman. And I can't wait to see like her personality change and how her life changes. Like I'm looking forward to seeing all of that.
Yeah. And I'm also interested in the way that like her personality change that we're talking about. I think a lot of it connects to her getting into magic and realizing her power in that world and then taking that idea and applying it to her human world as well.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think that helped her grow a lot. And I can't wait to see that as her powers grow, she does too, you know? Like she has her own personal growth. And I mean, that's kind of what happens, right? As you have your personal growth, that's when all of them started getting stronger powers, you know? Like you get them when you're ready kind of thing. It's this their destiny or whatever. So I like the way that they have their personal lives and their real lives coincide with their magical world as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about for Phoebe?
Yeah. So Phoebe, I love seeing how much we learn about her throughout the season. It's interesting because she's kind of the third build actress, but I kind of feel like Phoebe is the main character if I
Yeah.
had to pick one. And I
You
think
know,
that's why Phoebe is so many people's favorite.
I would have to say the same for her, 100%. I don't know what it is about her, but something sticks out. Especially, I mean, I know you relate to Piper the most, but to me, Phoebe's the one that I would 100% relate to the most. I think our attitudes are very similar. I've always, I don't know, I've always kind of naturally just been a person who says what they have to say, like, doesn't really care. Sometimes it gets me into trouble. Same thing with Phoebe. Like, it just feels like I'm also like one of the youngest siblings, you know, like I'm the youngest in my household basically, and that wild child spirit from Phoebe, I also relate to that and how it was, but also the way that she cares about people, it's so genuine, you know, like she even from the start she tried to kind of hide that in herself a little more, or at least the show tried to make it seem like she wasn't this, you know, big high spirited person, but she seems to be the one who loves the hardest and cares the most. Like we see that in so many episodes, like even in uh oh God, From Fear to Eternity, where her biggest fear was losing her two sisters, you know, the way that she cared about Andy so much in the finale, just everything, you know, growing up without her parents, it seems like she just all she wants in this world is to be loved and for everyone to be happy. She's really good at defending her sisters, fighting for them. I think her character development from the very beginning, where they portrayed her more as this careless person, we've seen such a change from her into this mature person. Her relationship with Prue is developed, even her relationship with Piper. You see, and I'm really excited because we even find out in The Power of Two that she wants to start working. So I can't wait for her to go on her own journey of finding a job or figuring out what she wants to do in life. Like I've just got so much, like I'm looking forward to seeing that from Phoebe. I really am.
Yeah, me too. I feel like we've seen so much personal growth, so much magical growth. You know, Phoebe was the one who started with the interest in magic and has really been focused on being a spell writer and being an amazing witch. And she's the one who's always making the connections in the episodes. I mean, we pointed that out time and time again. She's the one always figuring out the way to stop the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested in seeing how that and all of the personality traits in her, like you mentioned, she is the most caring person. When is Phoebe going to get a real love interest? We had a one episode love interest for her, but I want an ongoing storyline for Phoebe.
That is exactly what I am waiting for as well. And it kind of surprises me because we did get that from two of the sisters, but not for her. I mean, we had Clay, obviously, so we know that there was some sort of history. And then I guess maybe in Out of Sight, there was some sort of connection building between her and Brent. But yeah, we haven't had like a real love interest for her. And when is that going to happen for us?
I know. But other things I'm looking forward to, I mean, you know, you mentioned her finding a career. I'm really interested in seeing Phoebe kind of go from young woman who's done a million things and was this big city girl to kind of like figuring out who she wants to be and kind of what she wants her adult life to be. So I'm really excited for her to take that journey, and I'm excited to go on it with her.
I totally agree. Honestly, I feel like for all of these characters, we have so much to look forward to from all the sisters. There is a lot that's still going on. I mean, they drop little hints like that in the middle of the season, like her talking about wanting to get a job or finding a career. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm sure we can imagine that something like that will happen for her eventually. And I'm just really excited. I'm really excited to go on this journey for all of them.
Yeah. How about magical wise? So for the three sisters, kind of the power of three, magic, what are we looking forward to going beyond season one?
So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing whatever this higher evil is.
Mhm.
Obviously, they talk about it a little bit and hint at it. So we know that we are going to get something like that in the future. And seeing the sisters the way they are right now, they've only ever fought like I mean, they always seem to figure things out, but I'm excited to see them really have to put their minds together and use their powers and figure out plans for these things and the development. I can't wait to see how their power changes, like each sister, if they develop anything new. I don't know. I feel like they're going to grow really strong together, and I just can't wait to see how it happens.
Yeah, me too.
So, how about for Andy?
So Andy's storyline. So I started out, I remember saying in our intro episode that I was interested in the propaganda and whether they're trying to promote like cops are heroes, cops are the best people ever. And there was definitely a lot of that in season one. There was moments with Andy where, in the beginning I was very interested in him and very loving towards him. I was really into his relationship with Prue. Again, that chemistry between Shannon Doherty and TW King is astounding on screen. And early on, I was very invested in that relationship. Of course, we had the middle of the season where I was not a fan of Andy after he abused his power. It took me a while to forgive him, but slowly he did earn back my trust and respect. And by time we got to his end of the season, him figuring out their magic, him giving up his job in order to protect Prue and the sisters, his continuing to work with them in order to stop evil, and of course, his sacrificing his life in order for them to continue their destiny. Andy's an amazing character. I love his piece of season one. I hope that we'll get more Andy storylines in the future. I don't know if we will. He has passed away, obviously, but in a magical world, you never know if that's truly the end.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't for Leo. He became that white lighter. Who knows? Maybe we will end up seeing more of Andy, and I totally agree. I totally hope so. I feel that he died a hero. I agree with everything that you were saying. He did have that slip up that came from a place of frustration, which doesn't make it okay, but made it a little more understandable, I guess. I felt like you could see the effort he was putting and saw that he genuinely did care, genuinely was there for all three of the girls, not just Prue, and the way he just protected them till the end. And like you said, sacrificed his life, his job, everything. Like he was willing to go so far for the greater good and, for the sisters. And I felt that he was a really strong character in season 1, and I'm so glad that we got to have him as one of our main characters. I wish that maybe it could have worked out between Prue and Andy, but I do understand, where the show was coming from when they had that not work out, like had that kind of go a different way, but you can still see up until the end them they even say I love you before he passes away. He kisses her up in that little heaven scene. That love never went away for each other, and I wish it could have worked out between them. I wish we could have seen something like that, and maybe in the future if he does become a white lighter, then we can see something like that develop, because at that point he'd have no way to avoid magic.
Exactly. It would be part of his life. He would no longer be like, oh,
I want to go
family,
home
I
to
want to have a normal life.
exactly. He couldn't say that anymore. So I guess for Andy, we love you so much. You have our hearts. We ship you and Prue together. It will always be you and Prue. Forever my favorite. We love you. We're going to miss you.
Yes, we love you. We're gonna miss you. This is our little tribute to Andy right here. Thank you for an amazing season 1. We hope to see you again in the future, but we have no idea what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So, I also was thinking about Darryl,
Mhm.
and I really like the role he plays throughout the season. Kind of like a subtle back character, but still pretty important, as Andy's partner, the second main cop we see on the show. We can see that Darryl really is another version of Andy, who cares truly about his job and does it for a good reason, a good purpose. He's a good guy. Even though he doesn't know what's going on, he's there for his partner. He's there to save lives. He even, helps out the sisters if he needs to. I know we get some attitude and maybe some unhinged little comments from him, but I can't say I don't respect him and find them funny sometimes. I feel like he's got a really good attitude and he never takes things to a point where it's like, okay, like, forget it, I don't like you anymore. Overall, just a great character, and I really hope that we get to see him become more important in the future, since we do know that he's not going to be completely out of the show or anything. So I hope that he becomes more involved in the sisters' lives, and I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. At the beginning of season 1, of course, I went into it having seen the show before. So, of course, there was a part of me that was like, Darryl. But I was trying to let him grow on me as if I were a first time viewer. And it was very easy for that to happen over the course of the season. I mean, we open up and I was already, drawn to him as the person who's skeptical about magic. I thought that was an interesting character to kind of have him and Andy play off each other in that way. I loved watching their bond grow over the course of the season. And of course, I grew to love Darryl over the course of the season as well. By the time we got to that finale and he was there backing his partner, I was in full support of that connection and of Darryl himself. I really hope to see more and more of him in future episodes. I'm interested in seeing when, how, and if he will find out the truth about magic and the sisters and what will happen then.
Yeah, me too. I really hope that he does. And especially being that this whole time he was the character that was like, magic? No, no way, like knowing that he's going to become more of a main character. We can assume that he'll probably end up finding out eventually, but I wonder how that's going to go, how he's going to react, how that ends up, if it happens that, that he's understanding. Um, I'm just really looking forward to seeing him in the future.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to learn more about his personal life because we only know about him as a cop right now. So I'd love to know if he has a
Yeah,
love interest or what goes on. Does he have a family? Like, we know nothing about him.
that's true. Yeah, I can't wait to find out more about Daryl's personal life. I hadn't really thought about it. I guess knowing the show, I already know that information, but as a first time viewer, you don't know it right away. So, yeah, I can't wait to find out his backstory, maybe where he comes from.
All right, are we ready to talk about the worst men?
That's what I think. Okay.
All right. So this is the list I came up with. If I'm missing anyone, just let me know and then we can rank them. So I have on here the Dream Sorcerer, Roger, Josh, Alec, Rex, Loman, Chef Harry, and then I have Andy question mark and Victor question mark.
You put Andy on there?
He had his bad moment.
Oh my god. I think you're missing. Did you say Rodriguez?
I did not put Rodriguez on the list.
You better put his name down.
I'm putting his name down right now.
And also, did you say Chef Moore?
No, Chef Moore. Oh, and the manager, right?
Yes. What was his name?
I don't even know. I'm just putting the manager.
The manager. Yep. Okay.
All right, so let's rank them. Who do we think was the worst?
So, I honestly, they're all absolutely horrible.
Should we go
I
with the Dream
just-
Sorcerer since he's low-key a literal, like, rapey guy?
I guess so. I guess that would make sense. I
Yeah,
mean,
so we'll go
that,
number 1, Dream Sorcerer.
yeah. Number one, we'll say the Dream Sorcerer. I don't know. For me, since Rodriguez killed Andy, I had to put him up close. We have to put him up to the top, like somewhere up close. I mean, he
I'm
killed,
thinking number 3 for Rodriguez.
yeah, probably 3.
All right, so I'm thinking number 2 is Rex, if I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah. Rex for sure. I was going to say that too. I was going to say, I think next would have to be Rex. All around disgusting. Hate that guy.
Yeah. I think number 4, I'm going to go Alec.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 5,
Loman.
Loman. All right. 6, are
Mm,
we feeling Roger?
yeah. Honestly, maybe Roger would even be higher up there. I mean, not only was he this horrible, like, misogynistic boss or whatever, but he treated Prue like shit and lied about Phoebe trying to get with him, which is like gross, spreading information like that. There's a lot wrong with Roger, I have to say. At least Loman was just trying to get his story.
Yeah, I might reverse them. I'm going to put Roger as 5, Loman as 6.
Yeah.
Chef Harry is number 7.
Chef Harry, was that his name?
That was the one who had the shorts and was a dick to Piper and all that.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that the manager?
No, the manager is the one who was yelling at her in the one episode where she that told him he had a tiny dick.
Oh, yeah, okay. But so the one in the shorts that I was talking about, that's Chef Moore, I thought.
No, Chef Moore is the one who hired her at the restaurant and then quit and was the douchey French guy from episode 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that was not that big a deal. I think I was thinking of Chef Harry when I put Chef Moore.
Oh, okay.
But
So
yeah,
do
Chef
we
Harry
want to
would be.
put the manager as number 8 then after Chef
Yes.
Harry? Okay.
Yes.
Then I'm thinking Chef Moore number 9,
Yes.
Josh number 10,
Yeah.
Victor number 11,
Yeah.
and then
Feels
Andy at
right.
12. And he's way below these other douchey guys. I'll say that for
Yeah.
a fact. But I'm putting him on the list because he had some bad behavior.
Just because of, his bad behavior that he did, that I can't lie, that definitely was a problem. The abuse of power, not okay.
So our official rankings of the worst men of season 1, we got the Dream Sorcerer, Rex, Rodriguez, Alec, Roger, Loman, Chef Harry, the manager, Chef Moore, Josh, Victor, and Andy.
Sounds good to me. Makes
Sounds
sense.
good to me too. All right, now we're going to get into some spoilers. So if you are a first-time viewer, turn it off now.
Yes, if you don't want to hear it. All right, so what are some plots you're looking forward to?
So I'm really looking forward to the Phoebe in college plot. It's one of my favorite plot lines in the show, and I know that
I
comes up
put
in
that
season 2.
here too.
I'm really looking forward to seeing my thoughts on Piper and Dan and what I think this time around, because I know that's coming.
Me too. Oh my God. I forget. Yeah. I mean, I was looking forward to the whole Piper, Dan, and Leo like trio kind of thing. But yeah, I wonder if I'm gonna feel differently this time around once we like actually analyze it.
Yeah. I'm really interested in Prue's storyline in season 2. I think in season 2, she does end up quitting Buckland's towards the end.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that and that development. I'm excited to see Bane because I know he comes in season 2.
I know. Can't wait.
What else am I really looking forward to? I'm, of course, looking forward to Darryl finding out about magic and how his character grows in season 2.
Yeah. So are we only talking about like season 2 plots?
We can talk about anything we want in the spoiler section.
Okay. So for season 2, I have to say I'm looking forward to, first of all, everything you're saying. Yeah, Piper and Leah don't get married till season 3, but I can't wait for their like love to develop in season 2 and the whole other love interest with Dan, like you said. Phoebe starting to go to college is one of my favorite storylines, and I can't wait to see it. And of course, we know that Cole is going to be coming in soon as well once Phoebe does start going to school.
Well, he doesn't come until
Um,
season 3, episode 1, so we still have a whole nother season without Cole.
Really?
I
Oh,
always think it's in season 2, but it's in season 3.
wow, that's miserable.
You know?
Okay, well, either way, I can't wait for that anyways. As you know, Cole and Phoebe are just my all-time forever loves. Like I can't get enough of them. Prue, I'm excited for her to develop her new career and get into photography and all of that happening for her. Piper starting to get P3, get the club going. That's a really fun storyline for me too. Again, with Darryl finding more about his life, him finding out about the sisters and their connection together. I feel kind of bad for the first time viewers that were like, trying to be like, oh, maybe Andy comes back as a white later, but like we know that he doesn't.
I know, we were just like playing with their emotions
Yeah,
so
we're
hard there.
totally fucking with them. Also, later in the show, I'm really looking forward to. So, while we've been watching the beginning seasons, I also so when we started, I was already in the middle of watching the show. So I'll watch the episodes that we're supposed to watch for recording, but then I'll go to whatever episode I'm on and watch that. And like I see so many things that I'm like, I can't wait till we get to this season because like in the later seasons, there's so much more with their personal lives and their magical lives that go on. Like it just gets so intense and I'm so excited for us to get to it. Like, first of all, I mean, I wouldn't say looking forward to this, but I'm looking forward to talking about it and analyzing the whole situation of like Prue dying
Yeah.
and that whole episode, which is just probably one of my favorites. Like, it's just all around played really well. And Paige entering, of course, her part in all of this. I'm looking forward to seeing Grams and their mom more and things like that. I can't wait for Chris and Wyatt to be introduced.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
excited in like making more of those connections to the history in the future. We kind of brought up the idea of being born in the house, so I want to talk about differences between Phoebe and Wyatt when we get to that.
yeah. Oh yeah, like the whole Nexus thing and the power. I know that that's going to come back into the show, and we're going to hear more about that. Of course, I can't wait to see more of Barbas, my favorite. I can't wait for him to come in, and I'm really excited for them to get their new powers and talk about that.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, obviously, there's just so much more, but I feel like those are the plots that I'm most looking forward to coming up and discussing. Oh,
Yeah.
and Magic School.
Oh yeah, Magic School too. And of course the idea that I mean in season 1 it's very like week by week plot lines. I'm excited to see more ongoing plot lines start happening.
Exactly, me too. And you see a lot more of that later in the show. So I am really excited about that.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and TikTok at rewitched_pod. You can also send us an email to rewitched.pod@gmail.com. And join us back next time for season 2, episode 1, Witch Trial.